Hello and welcome to the AL.com Auburn recruiting show. My name is Nick Alvarez, a recruiting reporter for AL.com. Behind the scenes, we have the great Patrick Greenfield, who is a social media and video producer for us. This week, we're going to be looking at Auburn, another slice of Auburn's current 2023 recruiting class, and then we're going to look at one of the biggest needs that the Tigers currently have, which is under center at quarterback. Real quick, I want to plug our sponsor, Inline Lighting and Electrical. Thanks so much for helping out and supporting the show. And if you guys and the viewers have any needs for that, be sure to check them out. I also want to plug our chat. We would like to answer your questions at the end of the show. And if you have any other questions throughout the week, feel free to comment on either the YouTube post or the Facebook channel, or email me at nalvarez@al.com. So let's get right into it with our player spotlight of the week. And we're going to be looking at an in-state commit, like we with Auburn's lone offensive line commit in Bradyn Joiner from Auburn High School. Bradyn is currently playing left tackle. Last year he played defensive line, but he projects as an interior offensive lineman at the next level. He's currently rated number 23 in the country for the 24/7 Sports consensus. He's someone who's hard to move, which is why last year when Auburn had two Division I prospects on the offensive line, they determined, hey, let's put Bradyn smack dab in the middle as a nose tackle and watch him go to work. And now this year, those players have graduated. Joyner has slipped back to left tackle, and he's been having a lot of fun. I think he's had, as Auburn's gone 3-0, and they've just been really cruising through 7A so far. He's been a big part of a really strong run game. We have a highlight here that's just going to show him this completely kind of take out a player off the edge, which is just showing his athleticism. I mean, that block gets finished 4 rows deep, and he's just able to really kind of show some quickness and athleticism that you'd want from an interior offensive lineman when you're pulling the guard across the line or when you're trying to set a trap up for him. Now, Auburn needs a lot of help on the offensive line. From a recruiting standpoint, Bradyn's been really active on social media. He was actually the Tigers' first commit of the cycle in 2023, and he is looking for some partners to pair up. Worth noting that one of the Auburn High linemen that I mentioned last year, Esten Harris Jr., is currently a freshman with the Tigers. Moving on to something a little bit more interesting, I think, with the Auburn recruiting class is its lack of a quarterback. And before we get into some of the options, I just want to kind of give us a breakdown of how we got here. There are two quarterbacks that since I took this job last fall, I noticed, hey, these would be good Auburn targets, and they didn't end up with either of them. I'm talking about Briarwood Christian's Christopher Vizina and Lausanne Collegiate's Auburn Brock Glenn, who's named after his grandfather's alma mater, which was the Plains. In Vizina's case, it seems like Auburn just kind of missed out late while Auburn was dealing with a little bit of its own internal controversy or investigation into Brian Harson's program, justified or not. Dabo Sweeney was making really, really close personal connections with Christopher and his family. I heard from coaches, throughout Vizina's recruitment that, he just had a connection with Clemson early, and that never really got threatened by any team. And I think that's kind of a byproduct of Auburn not really stepping up early. In Auburn Brock Glenn standpoint, I heard from a source that it should have been a slam dunk, but it wasn't, and now he's at Ohio State. I think that can be attributed to the fact that, kids like to know what they're going into in terms of a program, let alone, the head coach is going to be there or not. I think Brock had a few questions about the offensive scheme for Auburn. I have a story up on AL.com that kind of goes into a little bit of a deeper dive on that. And, that whatever questions he had or whatever uncertainty he had about the program obviously led him to going to a much more proven quarterback factory in Ohio State that, they got the 2022 number 1 quarterback. They currently have the 2024 number 1 quarterback. So for 2023, they decided to take a chance on Brock, who many people see as kind of a really good quarterback, pro-style quarterback with upside. So where does that leave the Tigers? We have there are 3 options here that I think if you're kind of wanting to speculate a little bit of where they could go, that's kind of where the answer might be. I'm going to see in the chat, Aaron Noland. Aaron Noland is currently, I believe one of Auburn's 2024 commits who, there's always a potential if Auburn had a 2024 quarterback that he could, reclassify But I think that might be taking kind of a step or two kind of further. I think he and Adrian Posse are going to be names to watch in that context of, when they finalize their commitments and then, if they're able to jump on board early. But from the 2023 class, this is just kind of nationally known as one of the best in a long, long time. And you talk to anybody, Auburn needs to take quarterback. Every school needs to take quarterback every year. It's the most important position on the field. You want as many bites of the apple as possible. And, you can get a 2024 kid, but you can't miss out. You can't miss out on just anyone. So if you want to look at where Auburn's game plan might be for the next couple months, here are a couple names I think are worth watching. JJ Cole is one of the, I think, kind of one of the more promising quarterbacks, I think, that's kind of gone under the radar so far. He had an Elite 11 appearance that was kind of widely applauded. Big quarterback, 6'7", 230 pounds. He's been great on circuits this year, going to Under Armour camps and then, like I said, showing out at the Elite 11. He is a hard Iowa State commit currently. His dad has told other outlets that, they have a connection to Auburn and some other schools, so they're always willing to listen. And it's the coaching carousel. So in a couple months, the Cyclones may have a new coaching staff coming in for whatever reason, which would obviously open the door for JJ to find somewhere else. But Auburn has been in contact with him, and if we're being honest, if there is any quarterback that's part of a 2-quarterback system or a 2-quarterback class currently in the country, Auburn has to put that call in. This is not one of my names to watch, but I'd be remiss if I didn't say that Auburn should put a call in to Eli Holstein, who's currently one of Alabama's quarterback commits. Eli fits kind of that pro model that Auburn seems to be seeking out, and also Auburn has a commitment from Eli's school in Emery Williams. They both played at Zachary in Louisiana, so there's some familiar. In my harebrained theory is they should have to at least put a call in and see where it's at, because at this point it can't hurt. Moving on to another quarterback who would technically have to be a flip for the Tigers to get him would be Emery Williams, who is currently a Miami commit. He is the second he is the second quarterback in that class behind Jalen Rashada, who had a very, very big public recruitment, I guess, between the Hurricanes and Florida. Regardless of how that came out, the Hurricanes have their guy in Rashada. And Emery has obviously said all the right things since then. He's still committed to Miami. But if you want to find, I guess, maybe the more likely option to flip, Emery would be a good person to call and bring in. He is 6'5", another pro-style quarterback, kind of fitting that mold. And he's someone that if you want to have players with upside that Auburn seems to be targeting a lot in the 2023 class, he's someone you'd want to come in. And it's also worth noting, Auburn this past weekend in their home opener against Mercer, they played 2 quarterbacks. They played TJ Finley, and then Robbie Ashford got a lot of run because of some of Finley's struggles and some of the game plan going in. So at the very least, there's opportunity at Auburn. And when you have a lot of these kids finding themselves in a carousel that quarterbacks usually don't find themselves in on the recruiting market, at least from years past, which NIL has changed, you have to sell opportunity to these kids if you can't, necessarily sell them on your offensive scheme or sell them on, the coaching staff. And if you want to look through Auburn's offered quarterbacks who have yet to really find a home or have yet to been tied really strongly to one place, another name to know would be 3-star Will Pritchard. He threw for 1,800 yards last year, 26 touchdowns. He played in Florida's 3A, so a little bit tougher competition. And Auburn has also found themselves down in Florida, kind of scouting some of the smaller schools. One of their most recent commit, and DeQuavia Sori, is from Chipley, which is a 1A school in Florida. I think overall in Auburn's class, obviously there needs to be numbers added. There needs to be a lot of commitments, between now and that December signing day. But it's really a non-starter. You need a quarterback. I don't think Auburn can afford to wait. I don't think they can afford to go and dip into the transfer portal. Again, I think you need to find a future target. Last year they got Holden not trying to mess up his name here. Holden Gurnier from, I believe he's a 4-star, I think also from Tennessee, I believe. But he is someone that is currently on the bench. He's currently waiting. He's currently developing. You can't rely that he's going to be, a finished product in a year. You can't rely on the fact that you're going to get 3 transfer quarterbacks like they did in the last year and a half. you need to find someone to bring in and to say, hey, this is not even this is our guy. You need to find someone to bring in and say, hey, this could be our guy, which I think Auburn is currently looking for now in 2022. Looking through the chat, Ty Jones, another question. We really appreciate it, Ty. What offensive lineman do you think that has a chance to, commit to Auburn? I think if you look at Auburn's offensive line strategy, last year they took one tackle. This year they have now taken one player who has showed some skill at tackle, probably on the interior. You would think local again. They had some interest in Raquez McElderry, who was a Georgia commit, who then flipped to Alabama earlier this year. So I think that might give you kind of a sense they might want that big body type guard. And to pulling the trigger on an Auburn committable offer, but they had made an emphasis to not necessarily only recruiting in state, but kind of extending out that Georgia pipeline a little bit. So I think you can look, potentially at Milton, where Emery Williams is currently a quarterback, or like I said, with Eli Holstein and Zachary, kind of dip back into some of these same pools where you do have those relationships with coaching staffs or with communities that kind of have already showed some semblance of buying in to what Brian Harsin and the Tigers are selling. So I think that's all we got for this week's episode. Again, I want to plug Inline Lighting, our sponsor. For Patrick and myself, thanks so much for checking us out. And if you have any questions, be sure to drop them in the comment section below, and we'll get to them next week. Thank you so much for checking us out, and bye.